Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Katayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Karam Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vatarayanam Sutrabhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankara Charya Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Beta Vibhagini Yomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Ukaro Anthakaro Vai Tukarastan Anthakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vaivasvataya Mrityave Brahma Vidya Acharyaya Nachiketase Namaha. So, we are studying traditionally one of the most profound texts in the Indian scriptures, Kaṭha Upaniṣad. We already started before 2 years, and we are in the half of the way almost. Each and every verse what we study is complete with the meaning. Even if you are a beginner or you have some background in Vedanta, nothing wrong on that. Being simple and most profound, this Upanishad is loved by a lot of traditional teachers, and also they keep this Upanishad right in the beginning of a spiritual journey to teach somebody who is in the spiritual pursuit in the beginning itself. I already mentioned you this Kaṭha Upaniṣad is mostly a dialogue between the Lord Death and a boy. The Lord Death reveals the secrets behind the individual, the secrets behind the death of an individual, the secret behind the goal of an individual. So, the boon asked by this boy was a question which will draw all the knowledge regarding the goal, the means towards the goal, and also the secrets behind the individual. So here, we are the half of the way. What Lord Death give as a teaching to this young boy. And we are all much less similar to that young boy called Nachiketas. And we are eligible to listen about the human goal and also the path to accomplish this human goal. All these factors are being clearly mentioned through an instruction, in the form of an instruction to this young boy. And we are studying today second chapter of the Kaṭha Upaniṣad. In the second chapter, first section, 10th mantra, 10th shloka. One should know that any advice is not given in the form of a poem. In our world, if we want to advise somebody, or if we are listening somebody, they don't give in a poetic way any advice or any instruction. And also, we also don't give any advice in the form of a poem to somebody. It will be only in the sentences or in a paragraph. If we write in a paper, for the sake of by hearting the whole blessed thing, any instruction in the Indian tradition, we get in the form of a verse or a shloka, a small poem having 4 simple lines. It's called a shloka. And here we are studying the 10th shloka of the Kaṭha Upaniṣad in the second chapter, first section. I will read that verse and I will give you the meaning according to the Shankara's commentary. The verse is like this in Sanskrit. Yadeva iha tatam mutra yadamutra tadanviha mrityoho saha mrityumapnoti yayiha nana eva pashyati. Once more. Yadeva iha tadamutra yadamutra tadanviha mrityoho saha mrityumapnoti yayiha naneva pashyati. I will give you the meaning according to Shankara. Shankara has written commentary for each and every verse so that we can understand clearly what is being told by Lord Death to Nachiketas. This is the meaning. Iha in Sanskrit called here. Right now, what is here? Yad eva iha. That is been told as yadeva iha. See, iha means here. Right now, what is here? What is here? Tad amutra. Amutra means there. The same thing is there also. What is here, that is there also. Simple meaning. What is here, the same thing is there also. And reciprocally. Yad amutra, what is there, the same thing is here also. We will try to understand this sentence properly. Very beautiful sentence. I know that I am a human body in this world. We all know that this human body is inert, insentient. It doesn't have the capacity to work independently. It doesn't have the ability to work itself in this world without depending on any other factors. This body is being told in this Upanishad itself. Shariram rathamevacha. This body is compared to a chariot. So, in these modern days, instead of chariot, we can just convert the word chariot into a car, which is very famous. In the olden days, in India, chariots are very famous. In the festival, different types of chariots are used to take the deity of the temple and to go around to the village or town. That's why chariot is being given as an analogy for the body. In this Upanishad itself, we have studied. The car is for the purpose of another person. Car itself doesn't have the capacity to go independently. It is being controlled by another person. So, we know that this human body don't have the capacity to work, to see, to listen, to taste independently. It is being controlled by another person. For the time being, we say control. There is somebody inside this body, residing in this body. Here, the word what is here is directed to this entity which is residing inside the body. That entity which is residing inside the body is being mentioned through this phrase, what is here. Yada, eva, iha, what is here. Similarly, tat amutra. The same thing is there. What is there in this universe apart from the body or outside the body? What is inside the body? The same thing is pervading outside the body. Now I will give you a few examples to grasp the idea of this verse. A piece of gold and a golden chain. You have a piece of gold, very small piece, and you have a big golden chain. If the goldsmith says, what is here? The same thing is there in the golden chain. This is the idea conveyed by this sentence. The small piece of gold is filled with gold. At the same time, this golden chain is completely filled with gold. Now come to another example for more clarity. A dewdrop which is in the tip of the grass in the morning. At the same time, there is an ocean there. What is in the dewdrop, that is in the ocean. The same meaning is told here also. Now come to the real way of understanding this sentence. Now you understood what is there and what is here, it is there, and what is there, it is here. Our body is a limited body. We are having limiting agents. Our eyes can see, there is a limitation. Our ears can see, there is a our ears can listen, but there is a limitation. I cannot listen some voice, what is happening beyond 5 kilometers or 3 kilometers. So, the entity which is residing in the body is limited from the standpoint of body, with all limiting agents. That is why I say I am limited. My energy is limited. My power is limited. My vision is limited. My ears are limited. Everything, whatever there in the body is limited. We occupy in this world from the tip of one shoulder to another shoulder, from the tip of head to the toe. That is the space we occupy in this world. It's a limited space, not all pervasive, all pervading space. We are not all pervading. The point is, the entity which is residing in this limited body is not limited by the body, and also this same entity is the all-pervading consciousness. What we are looking for, what we are set as a goal, the same thing is there within oneself. The same thing, that entity which we are, is the entity which is all pervading. It is not limited. From the standpoint of body, just take an ornament. Gold is not limited by an ornament. Gold is formless. This formless gold can be converted to any forms. Because there is that being formless, we can convert it to any form. Similarly, the consciousness is formless. It is free to be in the human body. It is free to be there in a body of a dog. It is free to pervade inside the star and outside the star. It is everywhere. So, here, the limited individual is equated to the all-pervading consciousness. My conclusion about myself, that I am limited, I am incapable, I am subject to death and birth, I am subject to destruction, I am subject to change. All these are related to one's own body. Everything, any limitation is connected to a name and a form. Body is the one of the name and form in the world. Body is one of the name and form in the world. Any limitation, you can take any limitation, is connected to the body. But the entity being all-pervasive and formless, it will not get affected by the limitations of the body. The hole on the pot is not an issue to the clay. We don't say clay has a hole. Or we don't say clay has a crack. We say pot has a crack. Pot is subject to destruction. Pot is subject to break. Pot is subject to different types of modifications. The clay is not at all subject to modification. Clay is always, without changing itself, it appears to different forms. Like the gold, without changing its innate nature, it appears into different form. Clay is clay and the gold is gold. It's only an example which has its own limitations. Similarly, the entity which is a formless, the entity which is not subject to any destruction, that entity which is almighty, that entity which is not a performer of actions, that entity which is not an enjoyer of actions, that entity which is having the omniscient, which is omniscient, that entity is residing inside the body and which might be us. We are not other than this entity in this world. That is being equated. Body is an apparent reality. Body seems to be there when we perceive. Our perceptions are not always correct, because what we perceive, if we inquire into that, it resolves to another thing. It will get resolved into another thing. I already mentioned you in the last class. If you analyze this is a forest, forest will resolve into trees. Trees will resolve into different parts like branches, stem, flowers, fruits. So anything what we perceive in this empirical world is not true. Take a pot in your hand. If you ask, is this a pot yourself? You ask yourself, is this a pot? Yes, because it serves a purpose, holding the water for a long time. It can give you some quench in the when you have a thirst, because water is there in the pot. It serves some purpose. But we give an inquiry to the pot, whether it exists or not. Without the cause of the pot, there is no existence for the pot. The cause is the factor of the pot. The clay being there, pot existence is valid. Without the clay, there is no pot. So, body exists due to the presence of this entity. Body is just a superimposition on that. All the names and forms are just superimpositions or apparent reality. Without that, without the base, without the locus, you cannot have a superimposition. Puro vastu vishayani eva adhyasa. Something which is evident. It is not clearly perceived, but it is evident. There only superimposition happens. Superimposition can only happen, something is there right in front of you, but it's not clearly known what is there in front of you. So the entity being formless, it's not clear, it's not been understood properly, but it is there. A superimposition occurs, and we see a body on that. Different bodies are there around them. Different things are there, sentient and insentient. That is why this this prayer is very important. Purnamadav Purnamidam. The same meaning is conveyed in this sentence. What is complete, which is here, that is there, which is also complete, which is also not having any limitations, which is a full, without any kind of limitations. Purnamadav Purnamidam. From the Purna, from this a full means without having any limiting adjuncts, without having any limitations. Limitations are for the body, mind, sense complex. Any body in Sanskrit, it is called karyam, effect. And the parts, mind, anthakaranam, mind, intellect, everything, senses of listening, senses of seeing, vision, senses of smell, anything, it's all connected with the effect. We are limited from the standpoint of this human body, but in reality, we are not limited. We are unlimited consciousness. That is the meaning of this verse. What is residing in this body is unlimited consciousness. That same unlimited consciousness is pervading here and there, outside the body, in and through the body. That is what yadeva iha tadamutra yadeva iha. Very, very simple and a deep meaning. I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. This equation is being told in an indirect way. Tattvamasi. You are that. That equation, that is being told by this. What is here, that is there. That what is there, that is here. The same thing, one and the same thing. Whether it is residing inside the body of a human being, whether it is residing in the dog's body, whether it is residing in the form of an ocean, we should see the all-pervading Lord is in the form of an ocean. The all-pervading, unlimited consciousness, which is this individual entity, is in the form of sun. This individual entity, which is residing in my body, which is myself, is there in the stars. So, I being this all-pervading consciousness, I pervade everywhere. I am there in each and everything. Whether it is a star, whether it is an insentient piece of wood, whether it is a tree, whether it is a bird, whether it is a pot, whether it is a speck of sand, nothing wrong. All are limited adjuncts from the standpoint of empirical reality. From the ultimate standpoint, all these limiting adjuncts don't beyond to this unlimited consciousness. This entity is one and it is pervading everywhere. That is being told by this sentence. What is here? Really speaking, this one sentence has the same meaning of this prayer. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. That same meaning is conveyed here. Now I will read what Shankara says. The meaning yet eva iha is Karya Karana Upati Samanvidam Samsara Dharma Avabhasamanam Avivekinam Karya Karana Sankhatam. This body he always mentions in this way. Karya Karana Sankhatam. Constitution, complex of senses and organs, and which is effect. It's an effect, karya. Body is a karya. Due to our own deeds, we earn a particular body. That's why it's called an effect. In spite of all these limitations, I am unlimited consciousness, and I have the freedom to reside in a limited body also. Nothing wrong on that. I have enough freedom to reside in a human body. We should think like that. Instead of thinking, oh, even though I am an unlimited consciousness, I am the origin of all happiness, still I am in a human body which is subject to miseries and disturbances. Instead of thinking like that, I have enough freedom to reside in a human body. I have enough freedom to go through a misery. I have enough freedom to go through a headache. Even though I am an unlimited consciousness, I am free to reside in a human body. Very interesting way of accepting oneself. Because self non-acceptance is an obstacle in our spiritual path. I cannot accept myself because I hate myself due to my actions, due to others' reaction towards me, how they look upon me, all these things, and I judge myself that I am not acceptable in this world. I cannot accept myself. I am not a proper fair color in this world. There are people who are beautiful with their skin. There are people beautiful with their hair. There are people who are very much attractive with their different things in this world. And I am an incapable person. Like them, I cannot become in this world. So I don't accept myself. From the standpoint of body, I compare others and I mark myself as a negligible or inferior person. This self non-acceptance is a big issue in one's life. When you don't love yourself, you cannot love others. When you don't accept yourself, it's not very easy to accommodate the whole world. You hate yourself, and how can you be a friendly behavior towards others? That's why, in spite of all these body limitations, which is not mine, I am not this body or mind or sense or complex. It's just a superimposition on the real entity what I am. And that entity is all pervading here, everywhere. One mass, single consciousness. That is been told by Shankara. And Amutra, Nitya Vijnana Ghana Swabhavam Sarva Samsara Dharma Varjidam Brahma. Amutra, he mentions Nitya Vijnana Ghanam, eternal mass consciousness. Nitya Vijnana Ghanam. And its intrinsic nature never goes and comes back. Whenever I say intrinsic nature means a feature which never comes and goes. The heat and the brightness of a fire never comes and goes. It's always there. It is the intrinsic nature of the fire. Wherever you get some heat or warmth, it is due to the presence of fire. Without the presence of fire, there is no warmth or there is no brightness. So, this is the intrinsic nature of the fire. Sweetness is the intrinsic nature of the sugar. Whenever you get a sugar, there will be some sweetness because it's the intrinsic nature. Similarly, my intrinsic nature, coming before mine, I will say what is intrinsic nature. Nitya Vijnana Ghanam, which is in the form of eternal mass consciousness. Nityam, the word will negate the death and birth because body is a subject to death and birth. And it is always told my body. It is not I am body. Just like my pen, my home, my car, my shirt, my cap, my specs. In these sentences, something other than what? Something other than myself is conveyed through my umbrella. It conveys that I am not umbrella. My specs, it conveys that I am not specs. My pen, this writing pen is mine, but I am not the writing pen. My car, it conveys that I am not the car. Similarly, my body, it conveys that I am not this body. Finished. No question about that. My hand, my tongue, my nose, my ears, my shirt. I am not all these things. Finally, I can come to this conclusion that my will convey I am not that. Similarly, whenever I say my body means I am not this body. And who am I actually? This is being told here. Shankara says Amutra means Nitya Vijnana Gana Subhavam Sarva Samsara Varjidam Brahma. Sarva Samsara Dharmam. Samsara Dharmam. Samsara means whatever experiences we get between the death and the birth is called samsara dharma. Emotions, attraction, hatredness, growth of the body, deterioration of the body, diseases of the body, movement of the body, all these things fall under one single word, samsara dharma. Any change is not there for an eternal entity. Changes are always for something which is not eternal. So here it is told eternal mass consciousness is being mentioned through the word there, that is being equated through the word here. What is here? That is there. Now almost it is clear now. That mass consciousness is being equated here. There is no Nama Rupa Karya Karana Ubadhi. Nama Rupa. There is no name and form for this consciousness. Karya Karana. There is no senses. It's not an effect. This is one single entity which is consciousness, which is all pervading and which is also inside one's own body, and it is there everywhere. So that has been equated through this one single sentence. Now, Shankara's Upanishad says that if you don't have this vision in this world while living, what is the result? If you don't have the vision, what vision? Everything is centered on one single entity, which is Brahman. And that Brahman is myself. If we don't have this result, if you don't have this vision, how do we will get the vision? We need to take a deliberate step to go to study under a traditional teacher, and this traditional teacher will give you the teachings which are told in the last portions of the Vedas. This deliberate step one need to take. The chances will not come every time in our life. If we get a chance, this human birth is very precious, and we will not get the human birth every time. We have discussed all these things. So in this human birth, we need to take a deliberate move. It is not a serendipity. It will happen sometime in my life. We cannot give up like that. Oh, teaching. It's okay. I don't have time. Most of the people used to say casually, This is the goal of a human being. Yogarato va bhogarato va yasya brahmani remade chittam. Once you complete this teaching under a guru, then you engage yourself in your own respective works. No problem. But one needs to take a deliberate move to study under a traditional teacher to know this vision, that one thing is the locus of every name and form. That entity is me. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Atma Brahma. All these things, all these statements convey this message. Now, the second sentence, we will see the meaning. What is the result of a person who don't know this truth? What is the result? What will happen for that person if you don't see one single entity in each and every name and form? Mrityoho saha mrityumapnodi. From one death to another death, he will go again and again. Mrityoho saha mrityumapnodi. What is meant by going from one death to another death? Simple. When we have this misunderstanding that plurality exists in this world, duality is there in this world. I am separate from this world. I am separate from these people, and the people are separate from one to one. This is called plurality. This is called duality. This dualistic vision will give the result of miseries, the results of struggling. That is been told here. After this birth, according to the experiences you have gone through in this dualistic world, we will take again another birth. Mrityoho saha mrityumapnodi. From one death to another birth, again after getting the birth, he will go through jayate, asti, vartate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, vinashyati. Having birth, slowly he will grow, or she will grow, she will get matured, she will become old and succumb to death. Again get a birth according to one's own deeds, and again go to death. Mrityoho saha mrityumapnodi. After death, again to birth, again go to, again get death, and again take a birth. Yaha nana eva pashyati. One who see duality, plurality, who see all these things are true. This is a naisargiga pravanada. By birth itself, we think ourselves all these things are true. My parents are separate from me. My friends are separate from me. My house is separate from me. My toys are separate from me. Because Dvaitam is not to be taught. It is already in it. Once we open the eyes, we see different things in the world. Birds, animals, everything. And we conclude that they are separate from myself. In order to eradicate this division and to confirm non-dual, here the vision of duality is been condemned. One who accepts the duality, that I am separate from everything, I am separate from each and every individual living beings in the world, I am separate in this world. One who confirms that duality is a truth, he will go from one death to another death. Means he goes through this circle of death and birth. We cannot help the person. So, only way to come out of this struggle of death and birth, one needs to study, one needs to understand the reality of the creation about oneself. Because I am, this body is a mistaken identity. It's an error. An error can be corrected through the proper knowledge. And the proper knowledge can only get through the scriptures from a guru. There is no directly reading the scriptures, because scriptures will have always implied meaning. Most of the words in the scriptures have implied meaning. Implied meaning you cannot get from the literal meaning. Literal meaning will not convey the proper sense of each and every sentences. That is why, by the help of a teacher, by the help of a guru, lot of people are there teaching without expecting anything, for the sake of the welfare of each and every individual being. Even though we can invite 1,000 people, one who are eligible with oneself will only come. Very few. And they are going to be free from the death and birth cycle, listening to the knowledge, Shravanam. Because error is the cause of this samsara, the bondage. And proper knowledge, the real knowledge, is the solution for the samsara. If one can listen this non-dual vision of this knowledge of this, of the teaching of the Shruti, of the teaching of these scriptures, the reality about oneself, one can listen. If one can listen, it will help the person to come out of this death and birth circle. Death and birth circle means all the way only griefs and unhappiness. In order to be a pleasant mind, in order to be free from all kinds of sadness, one should take an initiation. One should initiate oneself, a deliberate action to study these scriptures thoroughly under a traditional teacher. It will only going to help you to come out of this death and birth cycle. This is the meaning of this verse. We will continue with the meaning, studying of the teaching of Lord Death in the next class. We will conclude right now. Om Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobrahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshadu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasya Shadini Deshoyam Choparahitaha Brahmana Santu Nirbayaha Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om